Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has firmly committed himself, apparently, to a path of violent crackdown. That much appears to be clear from the level of bloodshed seen in Syria's city over the last few days. What is also evident is that Assad is signaling to the international community that he will continue to ignore their calls to end the violence. He has been in power since 2000, when he inherited the office from his father, Hafez al-Assad. In this uprising, more than 1,700 people have died so far, according to human rights organizations. Avaz, a global movement that monitors Syria, estimates more than 2,900 people have disappeared since the uprising began in March. The group says security forces have arrested around 26,000 people, with many of them beaten and tortured, and another 12,600 are believed to have remained in detention. Joining us now live from Washington is Bassam Haddad. He's director of the Middle East Studies program at George Mason University. He's also the author of the book, Business Networks in Syria, The Political Economy of Authoritarian Resilience. You are extremely familiar with the government in Syria. The crackdown continues. Hama feeling the brunt of the government's military actions over the last few days. What do you think will it take to stop the bloodshed that's going on? What kind of pressure will work on Bashar al-Assad?
Well, first, let's start with the UN Security Council. It seems that, as we have seen, there is no decision, and I think the meeting tomorrow will also yield no decision, largely because all the different parties from China to Russia, as well as Brazil, are not very interested in condemning Syria for their own reasons. The Europeans are also have differing viewpoints as to how to proceed. And of course, the United States is embroiled in its debt crisis. But more importantly than that, the protesters themselves, the independent coordinating committees in Syria, and the more quote-unquote independent opposition in Syria that is not connected to outside powers has also rejected external interference. So it's very important to first set the stage for this kind of analysis so that we don't expect a Libya-style development, because it's not likely to bring about any kind of resolution. The only hope that we might look into is an Arab leaders summit of sorts that places pressure with some serious intent on Syria, except that this is also not likely to happen because most of the Arab leaders, with no exception, and I repeat, with no exception, are likely to do very much because they might find themselves in the same seat as the Syrian regime one day. So we are basically looking at the internal game, the internal fight, and the crackdowns of the regime and the responses of the protesters, unfortunately.
And so, as you say, no sign whatsoever to date, and probably none in the future, of any kind of condemnation whatsoever from any Arab governments. Complete inaction at the Arab League, no move whatsoever to sanction the Syrian government.
I can't say there will be no condemnation ever, but whatever condemnation will come internationally, it might not have teeth, and if it does have teeth, it might backfire. From the Arab League, the condemnations might appear, but they will not be backed by any intent to move beyond condemnation, which is something that the Arab League is extremely good at, as we have seen in the past decades. I think as I said, the hope that one has, if you are looking, or one is looking for some sort of a resolution, is for the coordinating committees, which are basically one of the major signs of hope in the Syrian uprising that are emerging throughout the Syrian territories, to actually become more and more organized and begin to certainly not use violence, because this is also against their principles, as we have seen in their declarations, but their role in changing the terms or the rules of the game between the Syrian regime and the protesters, I think is one of the bright spots, except that those who are looking for the regime to actually itself embark on serious change or reform or concessions, I think this is a lost cause, because the Syrian regime, unfortunately, is not wired for change. Even the recent announcement of a new parties law is problematic, largely because it leaves intact Article 8 of the Constitution, which declares the Ba'ath as the leader of the country, the organization, the party that is the party of the state. So even such concessions actually are just meant to forestall or postpone the inevitable, which is an apparent breaking point that one cannot predict at this point.
Bassam Haddad, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.